Welcome to the third webinar conducted by the Evolve HR conference. Today's topic is how to skyrocket your career in the Salesforce domain. We have an immensely talented panel over here. And obviously, I'll give you guys your chance to introduce yourself. A very quick introduction. We have Mr. Sunil Jayaram, Mr. Prasad, and Mr. Chitiz agarwal, who's our panel for today. And all of them are Salesforce industry leaders. And we'd love to see where you guys can take us in this particular webinar. My name is Arsh Lakhani. I'm your host for today. I'd love to jump into this, with you, Mr. Sunil. If you could give us a bit of a background, how did you end up in the Salesforce ecosystem? What are you doing currently? Yeah, is there something that you can start off with?
Sure, Ash. So first of all, Ash, Chitiz, thanks for having me on this call. And I mean, Salesforce is something which is keeping me from my sleep these days. So we all know how big the platform is growing as to be, and what all we need to make sure that we're able to fulfill the demand that we see globally. So my name is Sunil Jayaram. I head the Salesforce competency at Mahindra, right? And been with Mahindra for more than 10 years now. And my journey into Salesforce, of course, like everyone else, I started as a techie, doing C++, getting into Oracle. And I would say, where I ended up today is because I am very mindful and staying relevant to the organization I work with and to the industry I am part of. So I made sure my learning took me to where I am. So C++, and luckily I was able to get into the CRM side of things. And when software as a service became prominent, I had the opportunity to get into Salesforce at that time. Yeah. And I spent quite a lot of time in the US working for companies like Juniper Networks. And then I said, okay, enough is enough. I don't belong in the US anymore, and let me come back to India. And I'm now based in Chennai, working in TechM, managing Salesforce for TechM. Thanks for having me in the call.
Wonderful, wonderful. So such a pleasure to have you here. Mr. Prasad, do you want to take over?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on this podcast, and really appreciate that. It's a moment for me to share the experiences, what I have been gaining, right? My journey with Salesforce has been pretty interesting. I think in the year of 1999 or 2000, I got introduced to Siebel, and that's how the CRM journey took me off from the ground. And the projects which we executed in Jordan, right? It took me to the many countries. But during that time, roughly around 2001 and 2002, somebody told me that there is something coming it on Siebel, right? If I remember precisely, Siebel was not more than a $15 to $20 million organization that time. They're pretty small when I compare to Siebel, right? But since I come from a very technical background, I thought, let me try it out and let me see how does it work, right? Initial engagement started just out of curiosity to see how it is, why people are talking about this in the US. That's how the journey started. And later on, as and when the Siebel continued, we continue to build the capability on Salesforce. And when I look back right now in 2022, the $20 million organization of Salesforce has become $26 billion organization. Yeah. It's pretty interesting to see that journey. And during this course of time, I think at one point I kept the hand on both Siebel as well as Salesforce at the same time, because we were executing projects across the board. As a leader, I need to ensure both the programs are going right? But at a one point of a stage, what we decided that I need to focus on one thing. And I think that's going to be the game changer. Fortunate enough that my leadership team put me into a Salesforce, right? And that's how the journey started to unfold everything, right? And but if I go back and see, right, during my college days and everything, I was a hardcore techie, technological driven person, right? If you give me a problem and see, you will not be able to solve it, and I will sit whole night and crack that problem and show it to them that this can be solved. For that kind of a person, Salesforce, giving them a Salesforce and explore what you can do, it's like a boon in disguise for me. That's how it happened. And journey has been fantastic, seeing through many years. I think I've been seeing Salesforce in more than 20 years now. And I can literally eat, breathe, sleep Salesforce in that way.
Wonderful, wonderful. Just this very brief introduction shows us how, what an enterprising person that you've become, especially in this domain. And, I'd love to keep this moving on. Mr. Chitiz, if you want to go ahead and give your introduction, we'll just straight away jump into the questions post that.
All right, sure. Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Chitiz. Thanks, Sunil, Prasad for joining this. So my background quickly, I was like a geek in Java, back in 2007, 2008, where I was thrown to Salesforce. I would say thrown. Like I was, because when I heard Salesforce, I thought it's like a sales tool. It's like, it's more of a sales job and all those things. Like that's how the name is, it's still confusing. And I would say that was the best decision of my life, not my decision, someone else's decision from Accenture. But I was a very initial developer in Accenture. They had the excellence, center of excellence they were building up. And I was one of the initial developer there. I started there, worked there for a couple of years, moved to IBM, worked there for a few years. And then I was in US for a lot of pre-sales deals and all. And that's how I realized, the market is super hot, right? There is a lot of demand there and there is a crunch of resource, right? So I thought, why not start my own thing, right? So at that point, I actually moved out and started my own thing. And we just, turned 10 this year and it's been a great journey. We have been, I think we grew from 2 people to now almost 500 plus people. So I think it's a great journey right now and we're lucky to have it.
Great. So obviously, we've created a pretty strong baseline of geeks that are now industry leaders. So now let's see where this sort of experience and journey has helped us, and let's see if we can answer a few questions that we've come up with. So Mr. Chitiz, I think I'd love to continue with you. So, panel, just a base understanding, instead of, most sort of webinars where, I'm asking questions and receiving answers, I'd love this to be sort of an interactive session between the panel itself. Since you guys are all sort of industry leaders, it would be really beneficial for all of the attendees to understand what separate, industry leaders are thinking about the similar topic. So that being said, I think, Mr. Chitiz, if you would continue with this, if we start off again with the baseline saying that, why do you recommend Salesforce over core technologies like Java and .NET and stuff like that? So why Salesforce? Why not anything else?
See, I don't want to be biased on Salesforce, to be honest, right? But I would say, it's all about, I think more on the business perspective, right? It's all about demand and supply, right? Okay. What I feel is, there is a demand supply gap right now in India, right? If you talk just of India, like there was a NASSCAM report where as of today, we have 21.1% gap of, supply versus, demand, right? And this is going to actually increase threefold in the next 3 years, right? So that means there's a huge gap, okay, in every technology. Let's not just say just Salesforce, right? Having said that, with Salesforce, I think it's even more badly hit. Right now, we have industry leaders from other companies. You can ask them. Like there is a cutthroat competition, there is a cutthroat fight on getting these resources, right? And so that is one part of it. And secondly, what I feel, because I have done both, I've been both a part of the world. So Java, I would say, is so huge, like it's almost impossible for you to become like a expert on everything because they keep on evolving. Whereas with Salesforce, I know even Salesforce is expanding like anything, but still in Salesforce, like, learning those Salesforce admin and Salesforce basic like LWC and all those things are comparatively easier, where I would say within 3 to 6 months, you can call yourself not an expert, but at least an intermediate, and you can still land up a great job, whereas in Java and all, they expect you to be like a full stack. They expect you to be like a pro. That's my thought, Yeah.
Interesting. Mr. Sunil, do you second this opinion or do you have a different set of thought process on this?
And I think I definitely second that opinion. I think, what is happening in the world around us right now is, of course, the demand and supply is widening, mainly because every enterprise out there is trying to become fully digital, right? And COVID and working remotely has taught us that we can't afford to be not digital anymore.
Right.
And on the other side, what is happening is Salesforce as a platform is extremely rich, right? I come from C++ and Java, so I can't really ridicule that platform. But Salesforce as a platform is extremely rich in the capabilities that it brings. It is like one platform. When you learn Force.com, you are able to contribute to multiple different facets of a digital transformation, right? From sales to service to marketing to CPQ to field service, you name it, the platform offers, and it's a very tightly integrated, beautifully evolving platform. So demand plus supply, the fully digital ways of doing things, and Salesforce leading the curve by having almost 6x of the market share. is what is causing us the extreme demand for a Salesforce talent in the market today. And I mean, there is no other place that anybody should be even thinking. Let's stay biased on Salesforce, at least for this.
So, Mr. Prasad, Mr. Chitiz mentioned a statement that said that you don't have to be a core expertise into Salesforce to sort of then, put a 6 months into it and you can still land a successful job, right? My question here is, since this sort of the topic for this webinar is to how to skyrocket your career in the Salesforce domain. My question is that, is it very easy to switch from a non-technical background to Salesforce? Is it that customizable and that easy to understand? Or is it a necessity as somebody like the entire panel here to be a geek from the start and, get that standardized first and then move into Salesforce?
Yeah. See, we need to understand the perspective where the industry, where the economy is heading, right? Any job or any skill is more relevant if it is relevant to that industry, right? Right now, you are seeing there is relevancy of Salesforce a lot, and everybody wants to jump into Salesforce, right? Now, if I have to take a one step back, right, irrespective of whether it is a Salesforce or any other skills, the first person need to be so curious about what's going to happen, how it will happen. Am I ready for that? Right? See, Salesforce will also go through its ups and downs, and new acquisitions will happen, new clouds will get integrated. If the person is so curious to know, okay, what's coming up next? How can I impact my customers? What problems I can solve? If I go to the developer level, okay, how can I solve the problems in a better way? If that thinking is going to come, then the learning a technology is just a piece of cake, right? Take an example. Majority of us, we started in C++ or Java. I started in ASP.NET, then moved on to other languages very, very quickly, right? There was no kind of a resistance from jumping from one technology stack to another, the technology stack. When we were in C# learning, right, it is just an object-oriented programming movement to the Salesforce when we come to Apex, right? No, that's a one perspective. The second perspective we need to understand, right? When you look at the whole industry as it's moving, the economy is moving, right? There is a $10 trillion direction on the digital transformation every organization will embark, right? And in this $10 trillion in next 4 years or 3 years, right, there will be a lot of technologies which will come into the play. And Salesforce is going to dominate that. And there are 3 basic reasons for that. The reason number one, it's a platform, right? You don't have to code or you don't have to start from a scratch every time. Once the, as Sunil rightly pointed out, it's a rich platform, because of the functionality, right? Once the functionality is built, the other new customers can use it immediately. So that is the first thing. It's a platform. The platform will always have a power to make the business change. The second one, the innovation is built into Salesforce, right? When I look back, the ASP.NET or maybe C, C++, Java, once we develop a customized application, the next set of innovations coming into that programming language, somebody has to go and change and upgrade and everything. But in comes to Salesforce, the Salesforce does all innovation. Whether, let me take an example to you, right? When they wanted to have a very strong analytics, they went and bought Tableau and integrated, right? You just have to learn Tableau. When they wanted to have a very strong search enabled on the platform, they went and did the innovation and got a new company in Israel to integrate it, right? You are just a consumer or a developer of it. So innovation is a key business mode for Salesforce, and they will keep your platform on a cutting edge, right? So that's the second reason. And third reason is that, asking to your questions, right? Anybody can learn Salesforce, right? You don't have to be techie. The reason being very simple. If you remain at configuring the functionality, anybody can do it. Any profession, somebody who is very curious can jump in. I have known so many cases. People are nurses, people who are just office administration, or people who are fresh out of college. Somebody is still in 11th and 12th. They're jumping into Salesforce and learning to configure it. So they made it so plug and play for them to learn. However, if you get into the advanced side of Salesforce, where the functionality does not exist, then you need a other skill set of coding or integrations to that. So that's for, we can leave that to a advanced developer once they mature into a different state of it, right? So in nutshell, you cover up the whole paradigm shift where industry is heading, where Salesforce is heading, and how easy to learn, probably it makes a good choice right now to jump into Salesforce.
Right. So, Mr. Prasad, I have to say, usually when we ask a question to the panel, we get a bit of an answer, a bit of a, sort of let off. But I love the fact that you've targeted this question from sort of every angle that is possible of how a fresher can jump into it. And, our audience, we've done a bit of research on them. It's 70-75% are sort of students which are now looking to get into the Salesforce domain. And I'm sure, this is something that they would have loved to hear. So wonderful answer. Mr. Sunil, I think I'd love to sort of push this next question to you. Assume that I'm a fresher, right? I'm just right out of college, I'm a fresher. And if you had to give me a one-line advice to sort of kickstart my career into the Salesforce domain, just from experience, what would that be?
I think, Salesforce is all about learning. And then what they have also done is they have made it extremely easy for anybody new to come and adopt and learn the platform, right? Like what Prasad said, it's a very, very easy platform to learn, right? And if you're a beginner, you're trying to get into the industry and you have some fair amount of coding knowledge, you know what the IT landscape is about. And I think what Salesforce offers is that easy way to learn for you to make sure that you're able to get into a trajectory of learning. And as a beginner, you also need to understand that what it means to get into the Salesforce platform. As Prasad said, it's a much evolved platform. Once you learn the ways of configuring, customizing Force.com, you are pretty much available for the industry to solve a sales problem, service problem, marketing problem, field service problem, community and portal problem. So that the opportunity just becomes immense, right? And I've seen people with some basic Java background pick up Salesforce in just 3-4 weeks of time, right? And what it means is you can build applications right after that, because Salesforce as a platform has given you all the things that you need around it. I mean, as complex as artificial intelligence, right? The moment you know how to configure Force.com in your 4 to 5 weeks of learning journey, you already become somewhat an expert of knowing how to enable artificial intelligence for your business problems. So, I think maybe one-line advice is learn, unlearn, keep learning. Because Java has a different way of coding, and of course, you will learn that Salesforce makes it much more easier. So unlearn and learn is something that I would advise any new beginners who start Salesforce.
Wonderful. So great to hear. Audience, we have, I think, about 70 participants here live at the moment. I'd love you guys to also put in your questions to the panel. We do obviously have a set of pre-prepared questions, but these are industry leaders. They're here to answer your questions. So if there is something, for example, Amit Sethi here, he's put up a question saying that Salesforce promotes codeless things, right? So the entire panel, I guess, he's asking, what is your opinion? Is the move toward should we also move toward codeless things, or coding is sort of still the industry standard in this case?
So let me answer that question. Before we understand the code, I see many people who are full stack developers who are really love coding. They want to code all the time, right? Let me take you back to 1970s or 1980s, where mainframe was the main operating system. Everybody was hogging on mainframe. And COBOL was the preferred structured programming language, right? Still some of the banks run it, and some of the bigger organizations still run on a mainframe. But what happened, the technological innovation, caught up so fast. The 4G languages came into the picture. Because of that, most of the enterprises started adopting those technologies because it's faster to develop, faster to deploy, easier to maintain. Right. And I think all of us here, whoever is the participant, I don't think so anybody would have such a great experience in doing COBOL programming in mainframe, and he still continue to do that. Now we have evolved from that, right? If you have experience, that's good to have. Look from Salesforce from that angle, right? If you're going to look Salesforce as of now stand, coding is definitely an add-on advantage, because you will be able to develop most advanced functionality which Salesforce does not provide. That's good to have. But understand what Salesforce is doing at the back of their R&D division. They are trying to make it as much as low code, no code platform, because that is how they will excel and accelerate their business. And the toughest competition is coming from the Microsoft. Yesterday, I posted on my Twitter handle as well, and the LinkedIn post. Satya Nadella is already talking about AI pair programming. They are not saying AI is going to replace the coding, but say AI pair programming, right?
Yeah.
So that is going to happen in the future. But definitely it doesn't mean that the people who are experienced in the coding will go away with the skill. That skill is a valuable skill. But how do you use that skill into the current industry context? How you do that, that all depends on this. So my suggestion to them, if you are jumping new into Salesforce, spend time on learning platform. Then coding skill will be a natural extension to that. Whatever programming language, object-oriented programming is a natural extension to that.
Right. Understood. I think Amit Sethi must be happy with that answer. Yeah. So, Mr. Chitiz, obviously, we know that there is a demand supply problem in getting Salesforce developers, right? So, my question here is that, how are Salesforce salaries increasing compared to other technologies? Have you noticed a trend in the market that you would like to share with us?
Let's not answer that question live. That's going to be.
If you could give us a ballpark idea.
Let's not mention the numbers here, but what I would say is, say it's a simple market, right? It's all about demand and supply, right? Right now, as I said, like there is a huge demand on Salesforce, right? Which means, honestly, I've seen companies like, people we reject, from our company. We are a smaller company, right? We are just 500 people company, but people we reject, we have seen even Salesforce hiring those people, at a pretty high package, right? So I would say right now, there is no market standard in terms of what someone can get. It's all about, I've seen companies paying anywhere between for a 4 years guys, it can be anywhere between very low, to such high that, it's maybe even more than my salary, so I cannot really compare that. But yes, I would say, and that's a really good point, and I would say as of today, it's a bubble. And I would like to ask, to Mr. Sunil, Mr. Prasad, like the bubble, it's keep on increasing. Is it going to burst or is it going to keep happening? Because somehow, it's actually completely destroying our profit margins, it's destroying our ecosystem, in some way or the other. And maybe what I feel is like, for US customers, for UK customers, India is no more a cheaper option. That's what I fear actually the most, where like maybe they will start looking out for some other third world countries, So what is your take on that? Maybe it's a question from my end, yeah.
No, I don't think, the supply and demand, everything is dictated by the supply and demand, right? I think when the becoming fully digital is the norm of the world, I don't see the bubble bursting instantly, right? I think it will be a gradual process of more and more adopting the platforms which are succeeding in the industry. And when more and more people adopt, there will be a natural curve of things normalizing. That's the way at least I see things trending. But right now it's true that the supply demand gap is widening, and therefore there is a lot of demand for people who are skilled. As we speak, there are at least a 10x deficit in having architects who understands the Salesforce platform, right? I think there are some 6,000, 7,000 open positions across, and we only have hundreds of people who are applying for these things. There is a certain deficit. So again, if people are on the calls, if you are, for example, a Siebel experienced person, for you to pick up Salesforce and become a Salesforce architect is the shortest route possible out there, right? I think you can capitalize on getting into Salesforce, becoming an architect. But I think let's not worry about bubble bursting. There is a lot more opportunities out there. The world is just starting to become fully digital. I hardly see some 15% are fully digital. Even companies such as Amazon, who claim to be fully digital, there are still areas that they have to address. And this will go on for at least a couple more years. And then it will gradually trend into a normalization mode. And I don't see any bubble bursting.
So one question I have, sorry, Arsh mentioned, let's also ask among us, right? But, even some people have mentioned there, see, what I've seen is two parts, it's question is twofold, right? One is, people who are doing BTechs or MCA or whatever course, right? Do we need to change our, education system as well? Especially what I've seen people doing the CS program and all, even though, they've done 4 years of computer graduation, I would not say they are up to the mark where we still have to spend 6 months, 1 year on them, to make them project ready. Okay. That's one part of it. And secondly, if someone, for example, this guy who is mentioned, he want to move to Salesforce, right? And even if you do all kind of trailheads, all kind of trainings from YouTube and all, right? Everyone needs some practice projects, right? Okay. So I think that is one of the biggest gap where people might have a lot of materials to learn on. We have Journey to Salesforce, we have trailheads, we have so many things, but when it comes to real world projects, right? I think that's what is missing, So my question is like, one, do we maybe need to take some serious steps? Of course, you guys are industry movers. You can actually influence government to change in programs, to make it more, to if you're spending 4 years in education, let's also spend at least 6 months on that, on some real things, rather than after graduating, let's now see what, let's like, now what, now how to start. Anyway, this is for you guys, yeah.
So
that's a very, Prasad, go ahead.
So I have a different perspective around that, right? I think in our circle of influence and the way we talk, a lot of discussion do happen. How do we equip people to become project ready, or maybe they can start working on a project, right? See, when I based on my experience, what I have seen, right? When we equip 100 people, roughly around 100 people, when we pick up and train them, spend them 3 months on their time, get them double certified and everything. Out of that, what I see, the only 10% of people are really able to take a project ahead, where I can, in the future, in 1 year or 2 years down the line, I'll be able to build a team around them and they manage the project. Only 10%. Remaining 90% are just doers. You have to tell them, they will do it, right? There is nothing wrong in that perspective, because in a project, we will need doers as well. We will need the people who can thinkers, right? Who can think and execute the things, right? Both are required. But the percentage is very low when we look into that, right? And we spend many time and converting a doer, 90%, into a thinker. And we wasted many effort in that. The doers will never change until otherwise they want to change, right? So the question we need to ask back before we embark, right? Why people want to jump into Salesforce? I would typically have 3 responses: either to get a job, very short-term goal; either to make a career, a bit of a long-term goal; but somebody wants to make a life out of the technology and the Salesforce. So the answer would be completely different. If somebody gives me an answer, I want to make a career in Salesforce, I want to make a life out of Salesforce, my attention to them is probably 10 times more than somebody who wants to get a job. The reason is very simple. I just have to give them a small hint. They will pick up the whole bunch of it. If I go and tell them, learn this Service Cloud and come back to me, they will in fact not only learn, they will get certification and come back to me. Oh, this is what I've done. But the same question, the same hint, if I give it to a job seeker, learn Salesforce, he will come and ask me 10 questions. Where should I learn? How should I learn? How many hours will it take? Do I have to work on Saturday and Sunday to learn? Oh, my friend learned Service Cloud, but he didn't get a job. See, look at the whole thinking pattern, right? Now that's the current industry challenge we all of us are facing. Whether we like it or not, we need doers, we need thinkers. But I think if you are a fresh college out graduate or somebody who wants to make a career, I would sincerely advise them to ask this question: why you want to jump? If you want to get a job, okay, there are plenty of trainings, you can do it and get a job. But if you want to make a career out of it, means you can invest your next 20, 25 years in something which you want to really harness the skill, or you want to make a life out of it, your opportunities are unlimited. And linking back to your previous question about salary, if you want to make the life out of it, your salary will be unlimited. It is up to you. But if you are seeking a job, if you're seeking a career, there is an upper cap for you to do that. So I think, it all depends on the people. How do you want to do it? But when I look at the demand and supply, what Sunil and you were talking about, definitely we will have to train the people. We will have to equip them. It might take, because I have seen in my experience, I have trained somebody in 15 days and he is class apart from training somebody 6 months or 1 year. And when I look back, what did I train him? What did I do differently? Nothing. The same curriculum, the same, everything is same. But the fire in the belly was so high in him to learn and drink, sleep with Salesforce was so high. He literally shined like anything, right? I think that's what the perspective we need to change. And now with so many job opening coming into the industry, everybody has such a massive opportunity to make a life out of it. Not only job, don't even think about a job. Job is just a very, very starting point of your entire stuff. Make a life out of Salesforce, or make a life or maybe career out of Salesforce. And your opportunities will just unlimited. As you know, Sunil was highlighting one example. If you're in say Siebel, and Siebel architect jumping into Salesforce and shining is the shortest path you can do it. And but when I, when we go and ask the Siebel guys to do it, I think many people, Siebel guys have reduced, because I come from a Siebel background. The population have reduced. All the people have jumped into either Salesforce or something else. But people, when they have jumped, whoever wants to make life out of it, they literally shine like anything, right? So figure out each person is unique. But only one thing I started to identify right now in whoever want to see how much fire he has in his belly. What is that measure? And I'm figuring out how do I measure that within the first interaction, so that I can put him in a different bucket altogether and train him, mentor him at a different level, rather than combining with him just with the job seekers. Because the whole problem, I will give you one example. We were training 22 people, 25 people one go. And when we asked the team to go, we want to build a team, they went to the bench, they looked at all the people, we gave some criteria, they went and picked 25 people and put them in a room. And for, I think, 30 days, we hammered them, trained them. And after that, I started to get a call. I don't want to go here. I don't want to go this. I don't want to take a certification. A lot of reasons, right? You can understand where we went wrong. We just picked a bunch of people and trained them in a hottest technology. It's a #1 technology, but people did not realize they have been given a golden opportunity in their hand, right? So you have to understand, we wasted our effort, not many efforts like that. Now, anybody who wants to train or anybody who wants to jump into that, please evaluate yourself first before asking for a suggestion from anyone there. If he's a fresh out of college, right? And people will become selective in choosing and training them. Okay, so that's my perspective, Chitiz.
Right. So that's good. I think one question which again a lot of people are asking, which is part of this question, is like, there are a lot of trainings available out there, right? But what about projects? Like, of course, once you join XYZ company, then of course you get projects, right? But before that, if someone wants to practice some real projects or some, real world projects, which are similar to this, is there any platform out there? Because that's a great question. Even I'm not aware of it. Sunil, maybe you know anything.
Yeah, so Chitiz, I think one thing what we are trying to do from TechMS, so we partnered with some of the academies out there, right? I mean, of course, we have our own Mahindra University, and there is academies like Manipal Global. So we have worked out a syllabus working along with them, which is a blend of classroom training, webinars, trailhead, and real world problem solving, right? I think that is one way of addressing it. I don't think there is any open forum where somebody who is a fresher who's learning trailhead online to go and work out some problem solving things. But there are a lot of developer forums, right, orchestrated by Salesforce themselves, and each of the centers, I know Chennai has multiple developer forums. So as a fresher, just Google for some of these, attach yourself with those bodies, with those forums. And there are weekly sessions happening on every cloud out there. And there you can get in touch with the network of people in your region, right? I think these are some of those methods you can, of course, explore to get some problem statements and how you can accelerate your learning. But to me, I think maybe a structured way of doing it is look out for these academies who are now teaching Salesforce, which is a holistic way of accelerating you into the ecosystem.
Got it. That's good. I think there is a fair white space there for someone to develop that.
Just adding to Sunil, until you get somebody like Sunil mentioned about developer community or role model who can help you out handle, till that point, when you get it, complete the super batches in Trailhead. There's a lot of practical examples, but you will not get plenty of them, at least to a certain extent. If you're Lightning, there is a Lightning super batch. You can do that. You will be able to really hands-on do with Salesforce. Finish off all the Trailhead super batches would be the one thing. You can continuously do that. And second thing is finish up roughly around 10 certifications in 4 months. Go ahead with that, right? Why? See, you have to blend that with that. You see, many people have done this and their market value has gone up. Right? See, I think the reason for people to ask this question that if I get a practical hands-on experience, my market value will go up. I will be able to be, I'll be picked up by organization for making a career or whatever job, right? So that's the fundamental thinking people have. So while you continue to seek for project, but in the backdrop, you can do the super batches and finishing of 10 certification in 4 months, keep a tight goal for yourself. Your market value will jump. Even though if you don't have a practical experience, companies will still be able to pick you up, and then they put you on a shadowing someone for another 3 to 4 months, right? That's an alternate route which you can adopt.
Right.
Mr. Prasad, I think, so I get a question over here, right? So you mentioned in sort of one of the previous questions, you mentioned that, there's one employee that you trained for 15 days and he outshone everybody else that you trained for 6 months, right? So obviously you're standardizing the training process, right? But you're also mentioning that, you do these certifications and your value jumps, right? My question sort of here is that when you're giving an employee the benefit of the benefit to show that, you're outshining everybody else, is it then possible to retain that employee, and how are you retaining that employee? Because we do understand that, retaining the employee is a very big challenge, especially in this industry. So how are we sort of managing that?
See, the retention is a very challenging problem right now, right? There are certain measures we all can take. There are certain measures beyond our control, right? Let's accept the fact about it. When the market is very crazy, if people will try to look for the options, right? The only thing what we would say, the relationship between the person and the organization matters a lot, right? The trust matters a lot. And in terms of what value he brings onto the board. See, let me give you 3 examples, right? And both are unique. Assume that somebody increases his value 10 times, right? Assuming he does certifications, his value, he's a problem solver in your organization, he's a thinker, he's ensuring customer issues are not coming. His value has gone to 10x. But when you compare to his career, the so old golden era of HR roles and everything, when you map it, it doesn't even translate, right? And organization has a cap for it because of so reason. So what people will do when they look out for a bigger role or a bigger salary for them, right? That's a one case of a scenario. And we have an inherent problem in the way the organizations work, right? We are all binded by a designation, role, and everything. And that creates a problem across the board, right? The second set of scenario is somebody who's not increased his value. He's at the same level, right? And some other company is offering him, I will give you 3 times the role what you are offering and give you 3 times the salary. You have to let him go. That's it. You can't do anything there, right? The third example is somebody who is dedicated, his value is increasing. I've seen so many examples where the organization recognizes and starts promoting him or giving salary or giving him a newer, maybe a role or a new challenge or maybe an on-site or maybe something else which is really likes to do or passionate about, right? And then they, take an example, Google has this culture about pet projects. Apart from your work, if you want to do a pet project which you like, you are allowed to do that, right? So there are different combinations to do that, right? There is no one silver bullet for retaining an employee. We'll have to evaluate which option it falls into that and then take it further.
Very interesting. I think I'd love to push the same question to Mr. Sunil as well. Obviously, since both of you are into an MNC, and I'll move this along to Mr. Chitiz as well with a 500 people company. Sort of the difference in, is Mr. Sunil, do you believe that sort of the perspective that Mr. Prasad has just put, saying that if he has to go, he has to go, right? There is no way of retaining him, and it's not worth your time to retain him and put him that money. Is that something that you've been following as well?
Yeah. I think the great resignation is real. I think we're all definitely hounded by it day in and day out. And I mean, obviously the root cause for that is what we've been speaking since the beginning, right? The demand versus supply. So there is immense opportunities out there, and I think people who are skilled and who has the fire in the belly, who wants to explore more, will be constantly looking out, right? And there is no silver bullet to solve the problem. But I think as an individual, so you should definitely be in a mode where your skills are in high demand, right? Your organization should have the respect for you, for what skills you are bringing to the table, and the organization will then reciprocate and find all possible ways to retain you. End of the day, we have to run a profitable organization, right? We're not in it to do any charity here. So we have to see what makes sense. And I mean, I have seen on both sides of the spectrum, and we have gone to extreme stretches to retain some of the people. And I mean, the way we approach is, if that individual, he or she, right, is really putting their heart into the work, making sure they have stayed relevant throughout their career with us, right? They have shown value, they have brought growth to the practice. There is no reason why we would hesitate to retain such people. But then on the other hand, you may be extremely skilled, talented, maybe 20x certified on the platform, but you are an individual who is probably driven by self-interest than team's interest and growing the team as a whole, right? And then your contribution is only what coding you bring, what configuration you can do. It may not have a wider impact. So it is a mix of attitude, right? Your individual learning growth, right? The teamwork, the collaboration you bring into the table, right? And the positive influence you have the team, you have the organization, which dictates things whether we have to really stretch ourselves to retain you or let you go and chase your aspirations.
I think that's a very interesting perspective. So sort of, obviously, as much as we love listening to all of you, I want to sort of bring it along to a place. So since it is sort of a career-based, output, the sort of goal here that I want to do is to sort of, obviously, how do you kickstart it? Sort of something that we discussed, what are the current trends that are going on? And now I sort of want to move into more from the management perspective. To say that, obviously, like you mentioned, the great resignation is real and all of that. My question sort of, if I would continue with you itself, Mr. Sunil, what do you feel about sort of full-time hiring versus contractors? And now this is a very important question that, our team spent, really wanted an answer from industry leaders to say that, what do you feel about full-time versus contractors? And do you sort of eventually see that contracting, will overpower full-time employees?
Yeah, no, I think, I've been in the industry for long, right? I think almost 20 plus years in the industry. And this is a cycle of supply versus demand, and there will always be a demand for contractors to fill in and augment the gaps we have within the team, right? While we do all things possible based on data, based on what opportunities we see which are shaping up, the forecasting we do, right? And then the skilling, the freshers hiring, and cross-skilling people, we kind of scale our teams in anticipation to what the demands which are coming our way. But there'll be obviously situations where there'll be a gap for certain skills. For example, we may not readily have people who are skilled in, let's say, financial services cloud, right? There would be some scarcity there. And architects, as I said in the beginning, there is a huge gap in the number of architects which are available, and there are a lot of transformation programs that are starting, right? It's no longer about just doing a ticket resolution and support. When the entire world is becoming digitized, there is a lot of transformation to be done. So there is a lot more architects, a lot more consultants who can really front end and solve the problem. That obviously creates the need for a quick way of fulfilling that demand. And we, of course, reach out to our partners, get contractors in, right? And whether it is a long-term strategy to keep getting contractors, obviously, right? We have to run a profitable organization. So we will, while the demand for contractors will continue, and we are more than happy to take who are skilled contractors in. Obviously, we will be looking at normalizing it in parallel, right? So building our own capabilities as well. And and it's not rocket science to say that, the ecosystem will work well if it is one team within the organization, right? I think some external people who come in, obviously they will do their full in delivering what is the ask for them, but they may not have the long-term vision of what our ultimate growth is. So, I think it will be an on and off process where we will have contractors coming, but I think the backend, we will make sure that we are building our own scale as well.
Understood. So, Mr. Chitiz, obviously, you excel in this particular domain. So do you have a take on this question as well?
Again, as I mentioned, just a few minutes back, I think Prasad or, Sunil, told about, the challenges in an MNC, right? The biggest basic challenge in MNC is you are binded by the designations and the salaries, right? You cannot like if there is a team lead, you cannot give one person X and one person, 3X, right? You have to follow this pattern, else the whole ecosystem will fall down, right? I think the good thing with our company, maybe, of our size is, we are more agile, and we recognize the talent and we have the decision power, we have the decisioning on that. And so yes, I would say in our case, we are able to get the talent, we are able to retain that talent. Honestly, I know many companies have those iterations, in two figures, very high figures, right? Whereas we are lucky enough, where our iteration for the last year was in single digit, right? And then we are proud of it, and we are hoping the same thing happen this year as well. But the whole idea is like, we as a small company can have a more personal relationship with the employees, because it's easier to maintain those small people. Of course, once I grow 10,000 people company, of course, I cannot do that, right? It's impossible. But for now, yes, it is possible. And what we have also done is like, similar to my company, there are also another 1,000 companies who are similar to me, right? Who are at least, maybe it's a 50 people company or maybe it's a 20 people company. They have that, people who are more, influence to their CEOs, and they want to stick to that company, right? Okay. Right. So what we are doing is we are creating a pool of those companies and creating a pool of those, let's say, trustworthy or, passionate developers and all. And now we are, helping the other companies with those people, right? So we are trying to be a channel, because as big MNC, they cannot have like 1,000 vendors, right? But they can have one vendor who might have multiple vendors, for them, right? So you have a very different kind of approach, which I think no one has taken so far, as per my understanding, because people either hire on their payroll and then they deploy, or they just do a staffing. But in our case, it's a very B2B to B model, where we get a requirement, we go to another company, similar company, and we try to make it more professional. So we are able to solve it, and we are happy to solve it. And, where there are instances where like a big MNC, closed a last deal and they wanted like, almost like they asked me for 200 developers on Salesforce, which is impossible. But we were able to fulfill almost 78 of their needs within 2 weeks, 78 people, which I think in Salesforce industry is huge. Okay.
It is huge.
So we have always solving it. But yes, I strongly feel, and this is again a question, for you guys as well. I strongly feel, somehow, and this has already come in US, is people are, I know it might be confusing for people on this call, but people are, these days, especially the people who are seniors, who have been to a certain place, they are trying to become more independent. They don't want to stick to a company, whereas they want, more independent thing, and this has come very common in US, where almost 50% of the workforce are now independent contractors, right? So I see a market shift where anyways people are trying to be more contractor level, so why not, instead of fight with it, well, let's not, accept it, so I'm seeing the trend. Do you see the same trend in India, where people are now going more and more towards that contracting mode in the terms of developer as well?
Developer not as such, but yeah, I mean, definitely senior consultants, architects, there are more people now becoming a freelance contractors. And we adopt them. I mean, of course, we have the need, so we definitely make use of such workforce. But I think, as I said, from a long run, right, I think we focus more on getting full-time employees who are part of the ecosystem. And again, it depends on the skill and the current need of what we are looking after, right? And there could be one and done scenarios where we will quickly onboard them for a couple of months, get the work done, and then they'll move on. So nurturing full-time employees and talent is in the interest of long run of any firm, and that's what our priorities are.
Interesting. So, panel, as much as I would love to continue this conversation, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today. It was such a pleasure having all of you guys, Sunil, Prasad, and Mr. Chitiz, all of you guys, such a wonderful panel today. I'm sure, all of the participants were super happy as well. I'd love for the participants to know that, we have our own YouTube channel as well, where we post all of these. I'm sure Mr. Prasad and Sunil post this on their LinkedIn's as well. Once again, thank you guys so much for having me and coming down to the podcast. And we hope to see you guys once again very soon. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Josh, for having us.
Thank you, Prasad, Kumar.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, pleasure.